The jungle was alive. Captain Logan Chase felt it in his boots, the hum of insects, the weight of the humid air, and the subtle vibration beneath the earth, as if Talus for itself were holding its breath. His comms crackled, and a low voice broke through the static. "Captain, perimeter traps tripped at Sector 7. Movement heading west." Chase glanced at the hastily drawn map spread on the command table, illuminated by the dim glow of a tactical lamp. Sector 7. That was closer than he liked. The Galactic Empire's soldiers were testing the outer defenses already. He tapped his earpiece. "Hold position. Don't engage unless they get curious. And keep quiet." "Yes, sir." Chase turned to his second-in-command, Sergeant Brooke Vance, her face set with the same grim determination he'd come to rely on over their 10 years in the field together. She caught his look and nodded. "They're probing us," she said. "Softening up before the real push." "Yeah. That's what I do." Chase sighed and adjusted the rifle slung over his shoulder. "Earth Command wants us to stall, but they're delusional if they think talking is going to solve anything. The Empire doesn't come to negotiate, they come to conquer." Vance folded her arms. "So what's the play, Captain? Sit tight and let them creep closer?" "Hell no." Chase's voice was low, but his words carried a razor edge. "We've got the terrain advantage, and we're not wasting it." He leaned over the map, his finger tracing a path through dense jungle canopies marked by steep cliffs and hidden ravines. "Set up ambush points here and here. Funnel them toward the choke points. If they want to see how good humanity is at making a mess of their plans, let's give them a show." Vance grinned, though it was more wolf than humor. "Rangers lead the way." Chase smirked back. "Damn right." As Vance moved out to relay orders, Chase stepped outside the camouflaged bunker into the thick jungle night. The air smelled of damp earth and vegetation, punctuated by an underlying metallic tang that had lingered since the Empire's scout ships had burned through the atmosphere. He felt the ground again, the faint, almost imperceptible tremor. "You're watching us, aren't you?" he muttered to the jungle, half joking but not entirely sure the planet wasn't listening. Talus 4 was strange that way. He noticed it the moment they landed months ago, and now, with tensions mounting, it was impossible to ignore. The Empire's ultimatum had come a week ago, delivered via hologram with all the arrogance of a species that had never been told no. Surrender Talus 4 or face annihilation. Earth's leaders had immediately started talks, but Chase knew better. Talks were for politicians, soldiers dealt in action. And the Galactic Empire? They only respected power. That's why Chase was here with 40 Rangers, Earth's best, tasked with holding the line on a planet that was more wilderness than settlement. No reinforcements, no fallback plan. Just them, their ingenuity, and whatever Talus 4 had to offer. The jungle shifted around him, leaves rustling in a breeze that didn't quite reach him. He tightened his grip on his rifle. The Empire wasn't the only thing to worry about. Talus 4's flora and fauna were just as deadly, and sometimes it felt like the planet had a will of its own. "Captain," Vance's voice came through the comms. "Movement confirmed. Sector 7 sensors are lighting up. Multiple signatures. Looks like a squad. Copy that. Everyone hold your positions. Let them think they're getting the drop on us." Chase adjusted his helmet, the integrated HUD lighting up with real-time data. He crouched low, blending into the shadows. The jungle seemed to close in around him, a comforting cloak of green and black. He didn't need to see his team to know they were ready. They always were. Minutes ticked by, each one a nerve-wracking eternity. Then, faintly at first, Chase heard them, the measured crunch of boots on underbrush, the faint clink of metal. Zerandran soldiers. The Empire's finest. He smiled grimly. They have no idea what they've walked into. The lead Zerandran stepped into a clearing, his alien form sleek and tall, clad in shimmering armor that seemed to ripple like liquid. Chase could make out 6 others behind him, their movements precise, synchronized. They were professionals, but professionals didn't mean invincible. The first trap triggered with a soft click, and suddenly, the clearing was alive with chaos. Nets of razor-sharp vines, coated in a natural toxin, sprang from the ground and walls of the jungle, ensnaring the lead soldier. He screamed, his voice high and sharp, as the vines coiled tighter. "Engage!" Chase barked, and the night erupted in gunfire. The Rangers struck from every angle, their ambush perfectly timed. Explosions lit the darkness as mines buried in the underbrush tore through the Zarandran ranks. Chase moved like a ghost, his rifle barking short, controlled bursts as he picked off targets. Vance's voice carried through the comms, issuing orders with precision. "Target down! 2 more moving left! I've got them!" Another ranger replied, and the sound of gunfire confirmed it. The Zarandrans fought back fiercely, their weapons blazing plasma bursts that turned trees to ash. But the jungle favored the Rangers. Every fallen branch, every thick vine became cover. The Zarandrans were out of their element, struggling to adapt, and Talus 4 wasn't helping them. Chase slid into a trench, his heart pounding but his mind cold and clear. Through his HUD, he tracked the remaining Zarandrans. 2 left. He didn't need to give the order. His team knew what to do. Another trap triggered, a makeshift log swing straight out of a jungle survival manual, and the last soldier crumpled under its weight. "All clear!" Vance's voice came through, breathless but triumphant. "Good work," Chase replied, standing slowly and scanning the carnage. "Gather intel from their gear. Let's see what they were after." The jungle quieted, as if satisfied. Chase looked around, the faint glow of bioluminescent plants casting an eerie light on the scene. He felt that hum again, deeper this time, almost like approval. The jungle was alive, and it had chosen a side. "Captain," Vance called, holding up a datapad salvaged from the lead Zarandran. "Looks like they were trying to map our defenses." "Of course they were," Chase said, taking the datapad and scanning it. "The Empire's just getting started. But so are we." The night stretched on, but Chase felt a flicker of something he hadn't allowed himself in days: hope. The jungle was their ally, the Rangers were ready, and humanity wasn't backing down. "Let them plead for talks," he muttered to himself, a fierce grin spreading across his face. "We've already made our decision." The jungle was silent again, but the silence felt charged, as if holding back a storm. Captain Logan Chase scanned the dense foliage through his rifle's scope, his breath slow and controlled. He knew the Empire wouldn't take this first skirmish lightly. The Zarandrans were too proud for that, too regimented. They'd retaliate swiftly, and the Rangers had only minutes to reposition before the real fight began. "Captain," Vance's voice came over the comms, low but steady. "Intel from the datapad shows a second wave inbound. Heavily armed, 2 squads minimum. They're dropping in fast." Chase's jaw tightened. "ETA? 8 minutes tops." He took a deep breath and surveyed their position. The jungle provided plenty of cover, but it wasn't impenetrable. The Zarandrans would adapt, and the Rangers couldn't afford to rely on the same tricks twice. They had to keep moving, keep unpredictable. "All right, listen up," Chase said, his voice calm but authoritative. "We split into 2 teams. Vance, take Alpha and hold the ridge. Slow them down, hit hard, then fall back to the fallback point. Bravo's with me. We'll set up near the river choke point and cut them off before they reach the colony." "Copy that," Vance replied. "We'll give them hell." Chase smirked despite himself. "I'd expect nothing less." The teams moved with practiced efficiency, their footsteps muffled by the dense undergrowth. Chase felt a surge of pride watching his Rangers work. They were Earth's best for a reason, every one of them hardened by years of training and experience. Still, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something more was at play here, something beyond the Empire's usual tactics. The jungle's strange behavior earlier was no coincidence. "Captain, you getting this?" a voice crackled in his ear. It was Private Zane, one of the younger Rangers, stationed at a forward position. "I've got movement, but it's not Zarandran." Chase halted, signaling his team to stop. "Define not Zarandran." "I don't know. It's the jungle's moving. Like really moving. Vines, trees, everything. Hold your position, Chase ordered, his voice sharper now. He turned to the others. Eyes open. Something's not right. As they crept forward, the ground beneath them seemed to shift, almost imperceptibly at first. Then came the sounds, deep, resonant groans like the planet itself was stirring. The air grew heavier, charged with an energy Chase couldn't identify. He glanced at the others. Their expressions mirrored his unease, but they pressed on, their weapons ready. Contact! Zane's voice was urgent now. It's not attacking, but it's surrounding us. Like it's watching. Chase broke into a jog, motioning for his team to follow. They reached Zane's position moments later, and what they saw stopped them cold. The jungle had transformed. Vines as thick as a man's arm writhed slowly, almost curiously, around the ranger's defensive position. Bioluminescent plants glowed brighter, casting an otherworldly light on the scene. It wasn't hostile, yet, but it was undeniably alive. Everyone stay calm, Chase said, though his own pulse quickened. Don't provoke it. Provoke what? Vance's voice cut through the calms. Captain, what's going on? Not sure, Chase replied. But Talos 4 is doing something. We're fine for now, but keep your team alert. Zane stepped closer, his rifle lowered slightly as he stared at the writhing vines. Sir, it's almost like it's responding to us. Chase didn't answer immediately. His eyes were drawn to a nearby tree, its bark shifting to reveal faint, glowing patterns that pulsed in rhythm with the hum he'd felt earlier. It wasn't random, it was communication. He didn't know how he knew, but he was certain. The planet was alive, and it was watching them just as intently as they were watching it. Before he could process further, his comms lit up again. Captain, we've got incoming! Vance's voice was sharp now. Empire troops closing in fast. They're bringing heavy gear, mechs and drones. Chase swore under his breath. The Zarandrans weren't pulling punches this time. Alpha, hold them as long as you can. Bravo, we're moving to the river. He turned back to Zane and the others. Let's go. Whatever this jungle is doing, it's not our enemy. Focus on the real threat. The team moved swiftly, the jungle seeming to part for them as they advanced. Chase couldn't ignore the surreal synchronicity, roots and branches shifting just enough to clear a path, the air growing cooler, as if guiding them toward their destination. He didn't understand it, but he wasn't about to question an advantage. As they reached the river, the sound of approaching mechs became unmistakable, a low, mechanical rumble that shook the ground. Chase signaled for the team to take positions, spreading out along the natural choke point. The river was flanked by steep cliffs, creating a natural kill zone if they played their cards right. Set charges here and here, Chase directed, pointing to strategic points along the riverbank. Wait for my signal before detonating. The team worked quickly, their movements precise and practiced. Chase kept his eyes on the jungle, half expecting it to intervene again. He wasn't disappointed. As the first Zarandran mech emerged from the trees, massive and armored, the jungle responded. Vines shot out like living projectiles, wrapping around the mech's legs and pulling it off balance. The machine toppled with a deafening crash, its pilots scrambling to escape. Take them out! Chase ordered, and the Rangers opened fire. The ambush was chaos. Plasma rounds lit the air, explosions shaking the ground as charges detonated, sending shockwaves through the canyon. The Zarandrans fought back with relentless precision, their drones zipping through the air, but the Rangers held their ground. The jungle continued its strange assistance, vines and roots lashing out at the invaders, turning the battlefield into a deadly labyrinth. One of the mechs managed to break through, its massive gun turret swiveling toward Chase's position. He barely had time to react before a tangle of vines slammed into the turret, yanking it sideways and sending it shot wide. Chase took the opportunity, firing a well-placed grenade that disabled the machine for good. Captain, they're falling back! Vance's voice came through, triumphant. We've got them on the run. Chase didn't relax yet. He scanned the battlefield, his mind racing. The jungle's intervention had been too coordinated, too deliberate. This wasn't just a coincidence or some natural phenomenon. Talus 4 was choosing sides, and for now, it had chosen them. Good work, he finally said. Regroup at the fallback point. And keep an eye on the jungle. Something tells me this fight's just beginning. As the team gathered their gear and began their retreat, Chase glanced back at the battlefield, now eerily quiet. The vines and roots had stilled, but the faint glow of the jungle remained. He felt a strange sense of gratitude and unease. Talus 4 was alive, and it was powerful. But whether it was friend or foe in the long run remained to be seen. The sky above the jungle roared with fire as Zerandran dropships descended, their engines screaming against the oppressive stillness. Captain Chase crouched low behind a ridge, his eyes locked on the enemy reinforcements spilling out into the clearing below. Mechs, drones, and infantry moved in synchronized precision, a wall of gleaming armor advancing with mechanical efficiency. How many, Vance? Chase muttered, his voice low but firm. His calm buzzed faintly as Vance responded. 2 full squads, Captain. Plus 3 heavy mechs and at least 10 drones. They're not messing around this time. Good. A grim smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Means they're scared. He motioned for Bravo Team to stay low, their forms blending seamlessly with the dense underbrush. The river ahead shimmered under the faint glow of bioluminescent plants, and the jungle seemed to hum in anticipation. Chase didn't know how, but he felt it. The planet was ready. Everyone knows the plan. Chase whispered into the calm. Let them think they've got the upper hand. Hit hard, fall back, and let the jungle do the rest. Private Zane shifted nervously beside him, his rifle steady but his eyes betraying unease. Sir, about the jungle, are we sure it's on our side? It's doing a lot, but what if it... It's helping, Chase interrupted firmly. That's all we need to know. Focus on the enemy, not the how or why. Zane nodded, swallowing hard. Chase turned his attention back to the clearing, where the Zerandran squads were fanning out, their weapons trained on every shadow. They were cautious now, wary after the Rangers' earlier ambushes. But caution wouldn't save them. Wait for my mark, Chase murmured, his fingers tightening on his rifle. He counted the seconds, his breathing steady, his pulse a measured rhythm in his ears. Then he saw it, the lead mech stepping directly onto one of the hidden charges planted by his team. Now! The explosion tore through the clearing, a deafening roar that sent shards of metal and earth flying. The lead mech crumpled, its legs twisted and useless. Before the smoke cleared, the Rangers opened fire, their shots precise and devastating. Plasma rounds lit the night as Zerandran soldiers scrambled for cover, their disciplined formation unraveling under the sudden onslaught. Move! Fall back to the secondary position! Chase barked, already shifting to the next ridge. His team moved as one, retreating in staggered bursts while laying down suppressive fire. The Zerandrans pursued, their drones buzzing like angry hornets, but the jungle intervened. Vines shot out from the undergrowth, latching onto the legs of advancing soldiers and dragging them into the foliage. Roots burst from the ground, ensnaring drones mid-flight and smashing them against the trees. The Zerandrans fought back, their plasma weapons slicing through the vegetation, but for every vine they severed, 2 more took its place. Captain! Vance's voice came through, urgent but steady. They're pushing harder on our flank. If we don't thin them out soon, they'll box us in. Chase scanned the battlefield, his mind racing. The jungle was helping, but the Zerandrans were adapting too quickly, their superior numbers threatening to overwhelm the Rangers. His eyes landed on a nearby ravine, its steep walls lined with jagged rocks. It was a perfect choke point. Vance, redirect Alpha to the ravine, he ordered. We'll lure them in and collapse it. Bravo, lay down fire to cover the retreat. Copy that, Vance replied without hesitation. On the move. Chase raised his hand, signaling Bravo Team to shift positions. They fired in controlled bursts, their shots precise and relentless, forcing the Zerandrans to slow their advance. The jungle seemed to sense the strategy, its vines and roots withdrawing momentarily to funnel the enemy toward the ravine. As Alpha Team reached the edge of the ravine, Vance's voice cut through the calms. Charges set and ready, Captain. Just say the word. Hold until they're fully in, Chase replied. No half measures. The Zerandrans pressed forward, their mechs leading the charge. Plasma fire scorched the air, and Chase ducked as a nearby tree exploded in a shower of splinters. The enemy was relentless, their disciplined advance a stark contrast to the chaos around them. But they were playing into his hands. The lead mech stumbled into the ravine, its weight causing the ground to tremble. More Zerandrans followed, their focus locked on the retreating Rangers. Chase watched, his heart pounding, as the last of the enemy forces funneled into the narrow passage. Vance, now! The charges detonated with a thunderous roar, the ground shaking violently as the walls of the ravine collapsed. Rocks and debris rained down, crushing the Zerandran squads beneath tons of earth. The jungle seemed to respond in kind, vines lashing out to ensnare the few who tried to climb free. All clear, Vance reported, her voice tinged with relief. They're done. Chase exhaled slowly, his shoulders relaxing for the first time since the battle began. But his relief was short-lived. The ground beneath him vibrated again, stronger this time, and a deep, resonant sound echoed through the jungle. It wasn't the hum he'd felt before, it was a voice. Captain, Zane whispered, his eyes wide. The jungle, it's talking. Chase didn't respond immediately. He could feel it too, a rhythmic pulse that wasn't just sound but meaning. It wasn't words exactly, but the message was clear, leave. Danger, What the hell is going on? Vance's voice crackled over the calm. Is it turning on us? No, Chase said firmly. It's warning us. Something's coming. As if on cue, the distant roar of engines filled the air. Chase looked up, his blood running cold. A massive Zerandran command ship loomed above the treetops, its weapons glowing ominously. The Empire wasn't sending reinforcements. They were sending annihilation. Everyone fall back to the colony! Chase shouted. Move now! The Rangers didn't hesitate, breaking into a full sprint as the jungle itself seemed to surge around them, clearing paths and pushing them forward. Chase glanced over his shoulder as the first shots rained down from the command ship, obliterating the ground where they'd just been. The jungle retaliated, its vines and roots lashing out at the descending ship, but the Empire's firepower was overwhelming. Chase gritted his teeth, his mind racing for a solution. They couldn't fight this, not with the weapons they had. But the jungle, maybe it could. Vance, he called, his voice steady despite the chaos. Get everyone to safety. I've got an idea. What idea? She demanded. Captain, you can't. Just trust me, he interrupted. And trust the planet. Before she could argue, Chase veered off, heading deeper into the jungle. The hum grew louder, almost deafening now, as if Talos for itself was guiding him. He reached the ancient ruins they'd discovered earlier, the glowing patterns on the stone brighter than ever. Placing his hand on the central pillar, he felt a surge of energy, the jungle's voice resonating in his mind. Awaken. The ground shook violently as the ruins came to life, massive roots and vines rising from the earth to engulf the command ship. The jungle roared, a living force of nature fighting back against the invaders. Chase could only watch as the ship was torn apart, its pieces consumed by the planet. When the silence returned, Chase stood alone, the jungle still and quiet once more. He exhaled slowly, his heart pounding. Talos 4 wasn't just alive, it was a weapon. And it had chosen humanity. The aftermath was surreal. Talos 4's jungle stood still, its restless vines and glowing plants retreating into eerie calm, as though the planet was catching its breath. Captain Logan Chase knelt among the ruins, his hands trembling slightly as the energy from the ancient pillar dissipated. He could still feel it coursing through him, a connection, raw and unexplainable, as though the planet had momentarily used him as a conduit. The calm in his ear crackled, Vance's voice sharp and filled with worry. Captain, report! What the hell just happened out there? We're seeing debris falling from orbit. Is the Empire retreating? Chase exhaled, forcing himself to his feet. The jungle, it took care of the command ship. The Empire's flagship is gone. Whatever power this planet has, it's not playing defense anymore. There was a pause before Vance replied, her tone cautious. And you're okay? You sound like you've been hit by a plasma round. I'm fine. Chase wiped his face, grimacing as his hand came away streaked with dirt and sweat. Get the team back to the fallback zone. I'll meet you there. Copy that, Vance said, but there was doubt in her voice. She knew him too well to believe he wasn't shaken. Chase started back toward the team, his steps heavy with the weight of what he'd just witnessed. The jungle seemed to guide him, branches shifting to clear his path, roots lifting just enough to avoid his boots. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but undeniable. Taylor's 4 was still watching him. The sound of approaching footsteps made him freeze, his hand instinctively reaching for his rifle. But it was Zane, his face pale and streaked with grime, his eyes wide with something between awe and fear. Captain, Zane whispered, his voice hoarse. That was you, wasn't it? You did something. The jungle. Not now, Zane. Chase cut him off, his tone firm but not unkind. We need to regroup. Focus on the mission. But sir. I said focus. Chase snapped, sharper this time. Zane flinched but nodded, falling into step behind him as they made their way back to the fallback zone. The rest of the team was already there, their expressions a mix of relief and confusion. Vance stepped forward, her arms crossed, her sharp gaze locking onto Chase. You want to tell me what's going on? She demanded. The jungle's been acting weird since we landed, but now it's taking down starships? And you're in the middle of it? Chase hesitated, his jaw tightening. He wasn't sure how to explain what had happened without sounding insane. Finally, he said, Talos 4 isn't just a planet. It's alive. It's sentient. And for some reason, it's decided to help us. Vance stared at him, her skepticism evident, but she didn't interrupt. He continued, I don't know why, and I don't know how, but it's been reacting to the Empire's attacks. That pillar in the ruins, it activated when I touched it. The jungle isn't just defending itself. It's fighting back. There was a long silence as the team processed his words. Finally, Vance spoke, her tone carefully measured. So what you're saying is, we've got a planet on our side? Chase managed a faint smile. Looks that way. Before anyone could respond, the comm crackled again, this time with a faint, static-filled signal. This is Earth Command to Talos 4. Captain Chase, respond. What's your status? Chase tapped his earpiece. This is Chase. The Empire's ground forces have been neutralized, and their command ship has been destroyed. Colony remains intact. Repeat, colony remains intact. There was a pause, then a voice filled with disbelief. Destroyed? By what force? Chase hesitated, glancing at his team. Let's just say the planet has its own way of handling threats. Another pause, then the voice returned, sterner this time. Captain, you're ordered to hold position until reinforcements arrive. The Council is preparing to negotiate with the Empire for a ceasefire. Chase's fist clenched involuntarily. With all due respect, sir, the Empire doesn't negotiate. They regroup. If you give them time, they'll bring an even bigger fleet. The decision isn't yours, Captain. Hold position. The comm cut off, leaving Chase seething. He turned to Vance, who was already shaking her head. They're idiots. The Empire's not going to back down, not after losing a flagship. Exactly, Chase said. We've got one chance to finish this before they come back stronger. Vance frowned. And how do you plan to do that? We're out of explosives, low on ammo, and even with the jungle's help, we can't take out an entire fleet. Chase looked back toward the ruins, the faint glow of the pillars still visible in the distance. The jungle has more power than we've seen. If we can figure out how to tap into it fully, we can stop the Empire for good. Zane stepped forward, his voice hesitant but determined. Sir, with all due respect, how do we know the jungle won't turn on us once we've used it? This whole thing feels bigger than us. It is bigger than us, Chase admitted. But right now, the jungle's made its choice. It's fighting with us, not against us. We need to trust it. The team exchanged uneasy glances, but no one argued. They trusted Chase, and that was enough. All right, Vance said finally. What's the plan? We go back to the ruins, Chase said. There's more to that pillar than we've seen. If we can activate it fully, we might be able to take out the rest of the Empire's fleet before they even get here. And if we can't? Vance asked. Chase's expression hardened. Then we hold the line until the jungle decides otherwise. The team moved out, their steps quieter now, their movements tense but purposeful. The jungle seemed to anticipate their path, its vines parting to create a clear route back to the ruins. Chase felt the hum growing stronger with every step, the energy in the air almost tangible. When they reached the ruins, the glow from the pillar had intensified, its patterns shifting in a slow, rhythmic pulse. Chase approached it cautiously, his hand hovering over the surface. This is it, he said softly. Whatever happens next, stick together. We're in this as a team. He placed his hand on the pillar, and the energy surged through him again, stronger this time, almost overwhelming. The jungle responded instantly, the ground shaking as massive roots erupted from the earth, reaching skyward like living towers. A deep, resonant sound filled the air, a roar, ancient and powerful, that seemed to echo across the planet. Above them, the clouds parted to reveal the Empire's remaining fleet, its ships descending rapidly. But before they could fire, the jungle's roots lashed out, piercing the sky like spears. The ships exploded on impact, their debris raining harmlessly into the jungle below. The light from the pillar dimmed, and the roots retreated, leaving the jungle quiet once more. Chase staggered back, his breath ragged, his body trembling from the strain. It's over, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. The Empire's done. Vance stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. You did it, Captain. We did it. Chase nodded, his gaze sweeping across the jungle. Talos 4 had saved them, but he couldn't shake the feeling that it had also claimed them. Whatever power the planet held, it wasn't something humanity could control. It was something they had to respect. As the team began their journey back to the colony, Chase felt a quiet resolve settle over him. The jungle had chosen humanity, but it was up to humanity to prove they were worthy of that choice. And that was a fight he was willing to lead.